Growing up, I had dreams and aspirations, but always felt like the kid that didn't fit in. For the most part, I wasn't a bad kid, but when I made the transition into adulthood, I turned to the streets for guidance. This led to getting locked up in juvenile hall, doing time in CYA, and eventually a 120-month sentence in federal prison. I had a lot of time to think and reflect during my federal sentence, so I share with you what I learned, hoping I can positively influence someone else's life with Prison Talk. What's up? Big Herc 916, getting down with Fresh Out. There was a comment that was left on a video I put out, and in that comment, the person mentioned they don't understand why guys, when they get to prison, they fall in line so easily. They go to work in these factories and they basically program according to that particular institution. And it was a great assessment. And I had to agree with him that it is somewhat interesting when you look at it from an outside perspective, how easily guys that go to prison make it comfortable. But the thing is, most of those same guys, their life on the street wasn't much different. They maybe had a bullshit job and hustled on the side. They hung out all day and hustled, or they lived with somebody who took care of them and did whatever they did. The fact that they got caught and now they're in prison is just a reflection of their daily activities. And so the act of committing a crime didn't really register. It was just something they did that they happened to get caught for. But the actual psychology of being locked up, it didn't really disrupt their daily activities. So they just continued on as though they were on the street. For anybody that's really had a life on the street that they valued at a certain level, when they go to prison, they literally go crazy because of the things they know they're missing out on. You get very depressed. You feel lonely. You become very introverted because you can't relate to the conversations or the environment itself. I know for myself, I didn't feel the urge to really want to hang out and gossip or participate in the prison activities. I mean, playing sports in prison, it didn't appeal to me. I'm like, why am I playing a sport and taking the game serious when I have 120 months to do? What sense does that make? Why would I be out there running up and down the court when I should be trying to figure out if there's a program or if there's something extra I can do to get out of here early? So that's how my mind rationalized, whether it was playing basketball in there or, spending days playing dominoes or cards. I felt like there was other things I could be doing with my time, even if it was reading something that took me out of prison, that took my mind out of the institution. I never adjusted in there. I never got comfortable. I never, felt like that place was somewhere I belonged. I didn't never buff my floor. There were guys in there who would wax their floors, buff their floors. They would polish their toilets. They would do all these things to make it seem like this was their home. And you could think about it, man. you're in a captive situation, and you're worried about putting wax on your floor and literally will take off on somebody if they step on your floor with their shoes on. There's guys that take their shoes off before they walk in the cell because they don't want to get footprints on the wax. That's crazy, man. That it's like if you took that much pride in taking care of your family or being more responsible when you're on the streets, you would have never went to prison. I went to prison because I basically programmed myself to go to prison. I went down a path that the choices I made led to other choices that led to other choices that made me susceptible to the choice that got me locked up. And the reason I know that is because when I went to prison, I backed up all my choices to the fork in the road choice that took me down a dark hole. And that's when I realized that you can't casually entertain bullshit and not expect to get shit on you. You can't do it. You can't hang out on the block and listen to conversation or participate in things and think you're not going to get your hands dirty, because every time you do that, you chip away at your morals and your values, and your conscience adjust it adjusts its marker, allowing you to make more decisions based on what your previous behavior was. So if your behavior is way over on this side and you're at a point where your choices and decision making are on a I say a higher frequency. If somebody says, "Hey man, um, I'm dealing with this issue, can you roll with me? I'm gonna go pop this dude, or I'm gonna handle it." You're like, "Dude, you're on your own. We're friends, but I'm not getting involved in that." But if you're kind of straddling, and this person's, you've been entertaining other ideas with them, you might be like, "Well, let's roll," and that's how quick it can happen. Jumping in a car with somebody, saying yeah to something. I mean, I've talked to like thousands of people who have been locked up. I've interviewed thousands of people over the last 13 years. And when I've talked to people who have um, unalived their spouse, maybe, or guys who have robbed certain people, it wasn't like that was just the first thing they did. There were other things that led up to that. There were other choices they made that were baby steps to what the reaction was that led them to them going to prison. And so once you go down that path, unless there's something that really shakes your world up before you get caught in a situation that takes you to prison, most likely you're going to go to prison. And for a lot of these young people out here, that's just where they're going to end up at, unless a hand of God comes into play that removes them from whatever environment. They're going to prison, and they're going to be happy in there. They're going to be those guys hanging up in there, uh, getting high off of whatever that stuff they're sniffing up in there now. They're going to be popping whatever they're popping, and they're going to be cool in there because 85-90% of them were getting high before they went in, and 85-90% of them are going to be getting high when they go to prison. The only thing that saved me was I did have a decent upbringing. My mom gave me some really good values. My grandfather, my grandmother gave me some good values, and I was able to reflect on those values, and they saved my life. They gave me a point of perspective to where I listen to people talk, and I would see different things, and I'd be like, you know what? Nah, man. So I had something that wasn't tainted. If everything you have is just nasty, dirty, unpure, then you don't have any reflective perspective that you can look at something that was not tainted, that's clean, that you could say, you know what, that's what I want to go back to. For a lot of guys, they don't have that. Everything they've been doing since they were able to remember has been just straight shit. And so when somebody says, "Hey, man, you're one of them dudes," you're like, "Yeah, I'm one of them dudes," and they're proud of it. And that's the difference. I was able to reflect on some things, and I was able to meet other guys that had the same perspective. Not everybody in prison, thinks on just, "Hey, man, I'm in here hanging out and I'm content," but the majority, they do. They take on the role of convict inmate, and keeping the mentality of never saying I was an inmate or convict saved my life. That saved my life, man. Guys used to get mad because I say I'm not an inmate, I'm not a convict, I'm not doing time. And they're like, "You're not doing time. What are you doing then?" I said, "Oh, man, I'm just passing through." "No, you're not passing through, man. You're doing time. I'm doing time, man." And they would get mad at me. But I'm like, "Dude, I'm just passing through." And I would continue to do what I'm doing. But that saved my life, man. And there were times in there where I felt like I was being tested by the devil with people that were in the same cell with me that were just so low frequency. And I would just pray and I would meditate and I would pray that I could remain strong and that I wouldn't have to violently have an exchange with this person because they were of such a low frequency nature. But it eventually worked out, and I'm here sharing with you guys on this channel. But if you guys could really see from home what the people that that the people that you're related to, or people that you know, what they're doing in prison, you'd be amazed, man. If you could just look and see what their daily activities would be, you're like, wow, you're in prison and you're just hanging out, just doing time, content, just running around, just waiting for a day, not questioning anything, just waiting for a day. So, Big Kirk 916, Prison Talk.